May 26, 1941, North Atlantic. A fabric-covered biplane approaches the most powerful battleship ever built, the Fairey Swordfish. Maximum speed 138 miles per hour. Cruising altitude barely 5,000 feet. Construction, canvas stretched over metal frames. Technology, World War I vintage. Armament, one torpedo. The Germans called it the flying string bag, a joke, an insult, an obsolete relic. The Bismarck, 50,000 tons of German engineering, 8 15-inch guns, armor plating up to 12 inches thick, maximum speed 30 knots, the pride of the Kriegsmarine, declared unsinkable, designed to dominate the Atlantic, to strangle Britain's supply lines, to win the war at sea. The math seemed impossible. A biplane from 1936 versus a battleship from 1940. Fabric versus steel. 138 miles per hour versus modern anti-aircraft systems. One torpedo versus armor designed to withstand multiple hits. Every calculation favored the Bismarck. Every tactical manual said the Swordfish had no chance. But one torpedo changed everything. One hit in exactly the right place, at exactly the right moment. The Bismarck's rudder jammed. The battleship became uncontrollable, steaming in circles, unable to escape, unable to maneuver, doomed. This is the story of how obsolete technology defeated modern engineering, how slow speed became an advantage, how desperation produced brilliance, how one pilot in a fabric biplane accomplished what the entire British home fleet couldn't. This is the hunt for the Bismarck and the impossible torpedo that sealed its fate.
The Bismarck was a monster. Commissioned in August 1940. Named after Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor who unified Germany, the battleship embodied Nazi ambition, German engineering, Kriegsmarine pride. The specifications were staggering. Overall length 823 feet, beam 118 feet, draft 30 feet, displacement 41,700 tons standard, 50,300 tons fully loaded. The Bismarck was larger than any British battleship except HMS Vanguard. Armament was devastating. 8 15-inch SKC-34 guns in 4 twin turrets. These guns could fire 1,764-pound armor-piercing shells to a range of 22 miles. Secondary armament included 12 5.9-inch guns, 16 4.1-inch anti-aircraft guns, 12 37mm anti-aircraft cannons, and 12 20mm anti-aircraft autocannons. The ship bristled with firepower. Armor protection was comprehensive. Main belt armor 12.6 inches thick. Turret face armor 14.1 inches. Conning tower 13.8 inches. Deck armor up to 4.7 inches. The armor scheme was designed using German naval engineering principles, prioritized protection of vital areas. The Bismarck could theoretically withstand multiple hits from enemy battleships. Propulsion was powerful. 3 sets of geared steam turbines, 12 high-pressure boilers, 3 propeller shafts. Total output 150,170 shaft horsepower. Maximum speed 30.01 knots during trials. Operational range 8,525 nautical miles at 19 knots. The Bismarck could operate deep into the Atlantic, could outrun most British capital ships, could choose when to fight. The crew numbered 2,092 officers and enlisted men. All were trained, experienced, confident. They believed their ship was unsinkable. German propaganda reinforced this belief. The Bismarck was invincible. Or so they thought.
The Fairey Swordfish was everything the Bismarck wasn't. Obsolete, slow,
fragile. Introduced in 1936, based on 1920s design concepts. A biplane torpedo bomber when most navies had transitioned to monoplanes. The specifications were unimpressive. Length, 36 feet. Wingspan, 45 feet. Height, 12 feet. Empty weight, 4,700 pounds. Maximum takeoff weight, 9,250 pounds. The aircraft was tiny compared to modern bombers. Construction was archaic. Metal tube framework, fabric covering, canvas and dope stretched over aluminum frames. The entire aircraft could be damaged by small arms fire. Machine gun rounds could pass through fabric without triggering explosive damage. This was accidental protection, not design intention. Performance was abysmal by 1941 standards. Maximum speed, 138 miles per hour. Cruising speed, 104 miles per hour. Service ceiling, 10,700 feet. Range, 546 miles with torpedo. These numbers were embarrassing. German fighters like the Bf-109 had maximum speeds over 350 miles per hour, could climb to 30,000 feet. The Swordfish couldn't escape, couldn't outclimb, could barely outmaneuver. Armament was limited. One 18-inch torpedo, or up to 1,500 pounds of bombs, or depth charges. Defensive armament, one forward-firing .303 Vickers machine gun, one rear-facing .303 Lewis or Vickers K machine gun. This was World War I firepower in a World War II conflict. The crew consisted of three: pilot, observer, navigator/bombardier, telegraphist/air gunner, radio operator/rear gunner. 3 men in an open cockpit, exposed to weather, exposed to enemy fire, flying at speeds a modern car could match. But the Swordfish had advantages, unintentional advantages. The slow speed meant tight turning radius. The fabric construction meant it could absorb damage that would destroy metal aircraft. The low-level flight profile made radar detection difficult. The aircraft was maneuverable at low speeds, could land on small carrier decks in rough seas. These weren't selling points, but they became survival factors. By 1941, the Swordfish was obsolete. Everyone knew it. The Fleet Air Arm was transitioning to modern aircraft, the Fairey Albacore, the Fairey Barracuda. But transition takes time, and in May 1941, the Swordfish was what Britain had available. Obsolete, outdated, about to make history. May 18, 1941. The Bismarck departed Gotenhofen, modern Gdynia, Poland, accompanied by the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen. The mission? Operation Rheinübung, Rhine exercise. The objective? Break into the Atlantic, attack British convoys, disrupt supply lines, force the Royal Navy to disperse, create chaos. Admiral Günther Lutyens commanded the operation, experienced, competent, but perhaps too confident. He believed the Bismarck's firepower and armor made it nearly invincible. He was about to learn otherwise. British intelligence detected the departure. Swedish cruiser Gotland spotted the German ships passing through the Kattegat. The information reached the Admiralty. The hunt began immediately. May 21st, British reconnaissance aircraft photographed the Bismarck and Prinz Eugen in Korsfjord, Norway. The Royal Navy scrambled. HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales were ordered to intercept. The battle cruiser HMS Repulse and aircraft carrier HMS Victorious joined the hunt. Additional forces deployed from Scapa Flow. May 23rd, British cruisers HMS Suffolk and HMS Norfolk spotted the German ships in the Denmark Strait between Iceland and Greenland. The cruisers shadowed using radar, maintained contact, provided continuous position reports. The Bismarck knew it was being tracked, but Lutyens pressed forward. May 24th, 5:52 a.m., HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales engaged the Bismarck and Prinz Eugen. The Battle of the Denmark Strait. The engagement lasted 20 minutes. The Hood exploded at 6 a.m., hit by a shell from Bismarck. The shell penetrated the Hood's deck armor, detonated the aft magazine. The battle cruiser broke in half and sank in 3 minutes. 1,415 men died. Only 3 survived. The British public was shocked. HMS Hood was a symbol, the pride of the Royal Navy, the largest warship in the world for 20 years, and the Bismarck had destroyed it in minutes. The psychological impact was enormous. The Bismarck seemed invincible. But the Bismarck had been hit 3 times. 2 hits were inconsequential. The third was serious. A shell from HMS Prince of Wales struck the Bismarck's bow, penetrated fuel tanks, caused flooding, created an oil leak. The Bismarck was trailing oil, leaving a visible track across the Atlantic, and had lost access to 1,000 tons of fuel oil. Lutyens made a decision. Abort the mission. Head for Saint-Nazaire, France, for repairs. The Prinz Eugen was detached, would continue independently. The Bismarck would run for safety, would use its speed advantage, would escape.
The British were enraged. HMS Hood sank, 1,415 men dead. Churchill issued orders, sink the Bismarck. Every available ship was committed. The home fleet, Force H from Gibraltar, ships diverted from convoy escort duty. The Royal Navy mobilized everything. But the Bismarck was fast, and the Atlantic was vast. The pursuing British battleships couldn't keep pace. HMS King George V and HMS Rodney were hours behind, running low on fuel, approaching the point where they'd have to turn back or risk running out of fuel themselves. May 24th, evening. HMS Victorious launched a swordfish strike, 9 aircraft. They attacked through fog, through anti-aircraft fire. 1 torpedo hit, struck the Bismarck's armored belt, caused minimal damage, but confirmed the Swordfish could reach the battleship, could penetrate its defenses. The concept was proven. May 25th, 3:06 a.m. The Bismarck executed a sharp turn, doubled back on its pursuers. The British shadowing cruisers lost radar contact. For 31 hours, the Bismarck disappeared. The Royal Navy didn't know where it was, didn't know its heading, didn't know if it was escaping or attacking. British Admiralty calculated possibilities. If the Bismarck reached France, it would escape, would be repaired, would threaten the Atlantic again. The window was closing. Fuel was running low on British ships. Time was running out. May 26th, 10:30 a.m. A Catalina flying boat spotted the Bismarck, 690 miles from Brest, France, heading southeast. The battleship was 31 hours from safety. British battleships were too far behind, couldn't intercept. Only one force was close enough, Force H from Gibraltar, led by HMS Ark Royal, and aircraft carrier. HMS Ark Royal carried Swordfish torpedo bombers, obsolete aircraft, but they were the only option, the only weapon that could slow the Bismarck, the only chance to prevent escape. Everything depended on fabric biplanes attacking the most powerful battleship afloat. May 26th, 2:50 p.m. HMS Ark Royal launched the first strike. 14 Swordfish. The mission: attack the Bismarck, slow it down, buy time for battleships to catch up.
Weather was terrible. Low clouds, rain, poor visibility. The Swordfish flew through storms, navigated by compass and stopwatch, arrived at the target area, found a ship on radar. The Swordfish attacked, dove through the clouds, launched torpedoes, pulled away through anti-aircraft fire, claimed hits, returned to Ark Royal. But they'd attacked the wrong ship. The target was HMS Sheffield, a cruiser shadowing the Bismarck. The torpedoes were equipped with magnetic detonators. Several exploded prematurely. Others passed under the Sheffield. None hit. The friendly fire incident was embarrassing, but provided critical information. The magnetic detonators were unreliable. Sea conditions affected them. They couldn't be trusted. The armorers on Ark Royal switched to contact detonators. Simple, reliable, required direct hit, but they worked. This mistake possibly saved the mission. Without discovering the magnetic detonator problem, the second strike might have failed. Sometimes errors lead to solutions.
May 26th, 7:10 p.m. HMS Ark Royal launched the second strike. 15 Swordfish, led by Lieutenant Commander Tim Coode. This time, they'd attack the right ship with working torpedoes in deteriorating weather against a target that now knew they were coming. The weather was worsening. Visibility was poor. Waves were 30 to 40 feet high. The Bismarck was making 27 knots, maneuvering violently, anti-aircraft guns ready. The German gunners had been in combat for hours, were experienced, alert, deadly. The Swordfish approached from different directions. This wasn't synchronized. Weather and visibility made coordination impossible. Each aircraft attacked independently, found its own approach, made its own run, dropped its torpedo, survived or died based on skill and luck. Sub-Lieutenant John Moffett was flying Swordfish 5A. He approached from the Bismarck's starboard side, descended to 50 feet above the waves, 90 knots airspeed, torpedo armed, anti-aircraft fire erupted, tracers filled the air, 20mm shells, 37mm shells. The sky was death. Moffett held course. Observer called the range. 900 yards, 800 yards, 700 yards. The Swordfish was so slow the Bismarck's heavy guns couldn't depress low enough. The 15-inch guns were useless, but the anti-aircraft guns weren't. They fired continuously. At 1,000 yards, Moffett released the torpedo. The 18-inch Mark 12 torpedo dropped, armed, began running. The Swordfish pulled up, turned away, flew through the curtain of fire, somehow survived. The torpedo ran true, 40 knots, 11 feet below surface, heading for the Bismarck's hull. The battleship's armor belt was 12.6 inches thick. The torpedo carried a 388-pound Torpex warhead, explosive force equivalent to 750 pounds of TNT, enough to damage, not enough to penetrate the belt directly. But this torpedo didn't hit the belt, didn't hit the main hull, hit the stern, struck near the rudder assembly. The explosion was relatively small, caused localized flooding, damaged the port rudder, jammed the starboard rudder. The blast twisted the steering mechanism, destroyed hydraulic systems. The rudder was locked at 15 degrees to port. The Bismarck steering failed completely. The battleship began turning left. Couldn't maintain course. Engineers tried to fix it. Couldn't. Tried to steer using propellers alone. Couldn't compensate. The Bismarck was trapped, steaming in wide circles, unable to reach France, unable to escape. Doomed.
May 27th, dawn. British battleships HMS King George V and HMS Rodney arrived, found the Bismarck, still circling, still unable to maneuver. They opened fire at 8:47 a.m. The battle was one-sided. The Bismarck couldn't escape, couldn't maneuver, could only fight from a fixed position. The British ships pounded it with shells, 14-inch guns, 16-inch guns, cruisers added fire, HMS Norfolk, HMS Dorsetshire. The Bismarck was hit repeatedly. The Bismarck fired back, scored some hits, but its fire control was damaged, accuracy declined. By 9:30 a.m., all main armament was silenced. The ship was a burning wreck, but still afloat. German engineering and armor had built well. The Bismarck absorbed punishment that would have sunk most ships. At 10:15 a.m., British ships ceased fire. They'd expended most of their ammunition, were running critically low on fuel, had to withdraw soon. But the Bismarck was clearly defeated, on fire, listing, dead in the water. At 10:36 a.m., torpedoes from HMS Dorsetshire struck the Bismarck. At 10:39 a.m., the battleship capsized and sank. Approximately 2,000 crew were in the water. Dorsetshire and HMS Maori began picking up survivors, rescued 110 men. Then a U-boat alarm forced them to leave. Over 2,000 German sailors died, including Admiral Lütjens. The Bismarck's first combat mission was its last. The unsinkable battleship had sunk, but not because of battleship guns, not because of overwhelming firepower, because one torpedo hit the right spot. One hit from an obsolete biplane. The mathematics were extraordinary. The Bismarck, 50,000 tons, 12-inch armor, 8 15-inch guns. The Swordfish, 4.5 tons, fabric covering, 1 torpedo. Yet the Swordfish won. How? Several factors. The Swordfish was so slow that the Bismarck's fire control systems couldn't track it effectively. Modern anti-aircraft systems were designed for fast aircraft, 200+ miles per hour. The Swordfish flew at 90 knots, 104 miles per hour. The predictors couldn't calculate such slow speeds accurately. The fabric construction was accidentally protective. Shells often passed through without exploding. Metal aircraft would have suffered more catastrophic damage. The Swordfish absorbed hits and kept flying. The low altitude made radar detection difficult, made visual targeting harder in poor weather. The Swordfish could hide in wave troughs, could approach under radar coverage, could surprise defenders. But the crucial factor was the torpedo hit location. Moffat's torpedo struck the stern, near the rudder. The Bismarck's armor scheme protected the hull, protected vital machinery, protected magazines. But the rudder assembly was less protected, less reinforced, a vulnerability the designers hadn't anticipated. One torpedo, one hit, changed the entire battle, transformed the Bismarck from predator to prey, allowed British battleships to catch up, to finish the job. Without that hit, the Bismarck would have reached France, would have been repaired, would have threatened the Atlantic for years. John Moffat, the pilot who dropped that torpedo, lived until 2016. He was 97. He always maintained he was just doing his job, nothing special, just dropped the torpedo and got out. But history judges differently. That one torpedo changed naval warfare, proved obsolete aircraft could still be effective, proved vulnerabilities existed in the most powerful weapons, proved courage and skill mattered as much as technology. The Swordfish continued flying until 1945, outlasted more modern aircraft, earned the nickname Stringbag with affection, not mockery, sank more tonnage than any other Allied torpedo bomber. The obsolete biplane became a legend, and the Bismarck became a cautionary tale. Unsinkable ships don't exist. Every design has flaws, and sometimes fabric defeats steel.